Next, let's study, perhaps now, the biography of Guru Padmasambhava. As for the biography of Guru Padmasambhava, yesterday I also briefly mentioned to everyone at the end about the miraculous birth or divine appearance of Guru Rinpoche in this world. From a historical perspective, we may not necessarily find something exactly the same in different historical accounts. Actually, this is not only the case for Guru Padmasambhava, but also for the historical accounts of the Buddha's birth and early life. There is the traditional Theravada viewpoint, as well as the Nyingma school's unique perspective within Purba tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, the view of Khedrubje. And if we combine many viewpoints together, there are a multitude of opinions, as you all should know. This is the case, whether in northern or southern Buddhism. Even the ages of many great and important figures in the world are often recorded in various different ways. So perhaps for all of humanity throughout the ages, there was a lack of written records in the early days of civilization. Therefore, when we diligently try to find something truly reliable and completely consistent now in our research, it is almost impossible to find, as you probably already know. So, just as we discussed yesterday, it is essentially the same as with the teachings of some great masters. About Padmasambhava's birth from a lotus, he also appeared before different sentient beings, benefiting countless sentient beings. If he was born through miraculous manifestation, he also benefited countless sentient beings. He could do so simultaneously or at different times. Just like Fadampa regarding Fadampa's birth, as you may know, there are also many different accounts of his age from various sources. So I just wanted to briefly explain about this. There are some well-known cases in history, for example, in Tibetan area, regarding the very beginning of humanity, according to various Tibetan historical accounts of origins. It is actually said in ancient Tibetan mythology that a demoness and a monkey are considered the origin. This is exactly how it is described in traditional accounts. Then, in the Han region, regarding the mythological origin of humanity, Fuxi and Nüwa are considered the primordial ancestors, and they are the progenitors of Chinese civilization. They are also among the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, with Fuxi being recognized as the human sovereign among the legendary 3 sovereigns, a group of ancient rulers. So there are different accounts in various versions of the story. So in many books, there are a variety of opinions. But in most books, when they talk about his birth, it actually wasn't through the kind of process that you would typically expect or imagine human parents that we are familiar with. His mother once stepped on a footprint that she found somewhere, and as a result of this unusual event, she became pregnant. After she became pregnant in this mysterious way, she eventually gave birth to a child 12 years later. Once he was born, he went on to perform a number of remarkable miracles, amazing those who witnessed them, mainly what we have now at this point in time. I was here with them in the library today and borrowed the Book of Changes, or Joyi. He is the original author of this important book, although we have some ancient and classical history books available to us which don't say anything specific about it, because after him, the wise and virtuous King Wen of Zhou could also be counted as a person with great calculation skills. Later, Confucius also studied calendrical arts. Different dynasties had this. But in fact, most generally wise and thoughtful men think he is the author of it. What is the reason? One is Bagua of Taoism. As for the Bagua, Bakajie, those of you who have studied Buddhist astronomy and calendrical calculation should all know this. When I had just become a monk, there was a highly respected Lama on our side named Tsering Sangzu. I asked him to teach me, and he taught me for a whole day. Then he got busy again. He had to go recite some important scriptures in that book. Baka refers to Bagua. Bakaje Baka is essentially the transliteration of the original sound. It also dates back to a very early time, close to the really ancient era. In ancient times, specifically in the distant past, it originally began during that era. Mainly it's the Book of Changes. The Book of Changes also came about during that time. Later, in different dynasties, there were different versions. But as for its true emergence in the historical context, it is still believed to be attributed to this person. This person was very special in many ways. Speaking of his unusual birth story and background, he also didn't have a real biological father. But as for when exactly he was born, that's still not particularly clear now to us at the present moment. If we say it was in the distant past, now, as for the very earliest period of ancient times in human history, that is about 7.2 million years ago, an extremely early era. Then, gradually, around 2700 BC, the eras of Yao, Shun, and Yu began, followed by the dynasties of Xia, Shang, Zhou, and finally Qin, and that's how the evolution continued. So in this way, when it comes to the origins of some aspects of the culture, actually, this person was a very extraordinary, someone who was unique in their time. Moreover, this person later, together with Nüwa, worked side by side to propagate and nurture the later generations of the Huaxia people, ensuring the continuation and growth of their descendants. Back then, they weren't called Han people. It was the Huaxia civilization. They are also considered the founding ancestors of the Huaxia civilization. But according to some historical accounts, his body was distinctly human, but his tail was that of a mighty dragon. There are many such figures, quite a lot of them actually. Even in murals from over 1,000 years ago, they are depicted this way. Whether in Dunhuang or in some patterns in the Forbidden City at the very beginning, there were different kinds of such patterns or similar written records in various ancient texts. So now, even in the Book of Changes that exists to this day here, it's very important. According to some historical records at the time, Princess Wencheng brought the Book of Changes calendar system from the Han region. Then, when she arrived in Tibetan area at Songtsen Gampo's place, she saw that the entire terrain of the Tibetan plateau resembled a supine demoness in her spiritual vision clearly. So it was necessary to build a temple to subdue her body and pacify the land. The Jokhang temple is the sacred monastery which is said to suppress the heart of the demoness, and then in other places as well, including Bhutan and various other sacred places. Some say there are 4 temples to subdue her body, while others say there are 12. On every part of the demoness's different body-shaped terrains, temples were built and established. It was for this reason that later Guru Rinpoche came to Tibetan area and subdued the demons. I think that whether it's the Bagua or the calendar system from the Han region and the Book of Changes are truly remarkable. As for their calendar calculation schools, including the current calendars, many of them are based on this. But as for the true author of the Book of Changes, it was said to be from so-and-so many years before the Common Era, so up to now no one really knows for sure. It's only in historical accounts that Fuxi's mother is said to have come into existence in this way, and later, together with Nüwa, he helped to further propagate humanity. From then on, the Huaxia civilization began. The Han region's Book of Changes and Bagua, its calendar calculations are said to be very advanced compared to other systems then. So, according to this account, there's a video talking about this for our reference. I saw something made by AI. It gave a short and simple explanation about this, just to give you an idea. But what the AI produced isn't necessarily all correct. It says he was in the womb for 12 years. And then, after he was born, he eventually got married in his 30s. And later, in his 40s, he created the Bagua. Later, when he was about 135 years old, he began writing and created the Book of Changes. Then, at the age of 190, he passed into nirvana. That's how it is. But I don't really believe this. It's just something they wrote, because his exact age is still unknown even now. We don't know his age through his life, but he was a person who appeared in history. Now, many of the world's calendrical systems trace their origins back to him, and it's just now I mentioned Nüwa and their double serpent bodies. As for this, later on, let me think, about how many years ago was it exactly? In the 1950s and 1960s of the last century, a Western scholar discovered that the structure of DNA in the human body, which was recently discovered in the West. I'll show you a picture of it in just a moment, right? It is exactly the same as their bodily forms in every possible way here. So now we have DNA technology that can help us understand many things in modern science and allow us to understand ancestry patterns, right? Our comprehensive genetic structure diagrams nowadays turn out to be just like their bodily forms, completely identical. But these things are extremely difficult to explain clearly to most people. So, many of Guru Rinpoche's various bodily forms, including some of his miraculous deeds, even if there aren't any particularly precise written records, that's still acceptable. So, mainly what I want to say is first, his birth, which is the starting point of his life and an essential event that deserves our attention. It was not a normal human way of reproduction, but rather the way ancient people described things. Is a bit different from how we do now, but if we treat all of it as just myth or mere legend, that's really not right. Now, scientists have made astonishing discoveries. Oh, it turns out that many thousands of years ago, some of the diagrams of human structure, including some very meaningful and significant Bagua diagrams, so here is the picture. The appearance of Nüwa and the others in the earlier depictions is shown as two snake tails gently intertwined together. This image of Fuxi and Nüwa's tails entwined, which we often talk about. The one in the front can be found in many ancient cultures throughout history. But the one in the back, the modern discovery of the groundbreaking diagram of human genetic secrets in recent years, between these two, because as we know, genes actually determine what type of person you are. This is very interesting to consider. The birth of the author we just mentioned, if you think about it, isn't it perhaps just a bit different from that of Padmasambhava? But this is also a major cultural aspect, so I'd like everyone to listen for a bit. What he says may not be entirely correct, but it's still worth taking a look at. At the age of 196, so that Bagua diagram just now, including in many hotels and parks nowadays, you can find this Bagua diagram there. In Tibetan area, many people also wear it at their waist, for example. Next, we will continue to talk about the biography of Guru Rinpoche. The biography of Guru Rinpoche is not very complicated. It's rather simple. Where did we leave off yesterday in our discussion? There were many esoteric teachings, right? Later, Guru Rinpoche stayed in a forest retreat and carefully practiced the four main stages of approach, close approach, accomplishment, and great accomplishment. At the beginning, there were loud explosive sounds, and all kinds of terrifying visions appeared. There were also some unusual signs, such as fires breaking out in the garden and several buildings being destroyed. But he was not disturbed by any of this, and continued his practice. In the end, he attained mastery of the Vidya mantras. In his dreams, he saw Amitabha Buddha and many other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. He even truly beheld Hayagriva, the horse-headed one, the wrathful deity of the Lotus family. Hayagriva is the wrathful form of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion. Even Dakinis and minor Buddhas in human form bowed their heads and obediently obeyed him. Especially, Guru Rinpoche's greatest contribution is that in Tibetan area, many of these, there will be more later, various spirits and deities were subdued by him. Most of the demons and spirits sincerely pledge to forever protect the Dharma. Indeed, the more Dharma protectors there are, the better it is for everyone. Actually, I think having more Dharma protectors is a good thing. Not long after, he entered the secular world and inherited his father's position. He often accompanied ministers and Brahmins. He entered the royal palace. He participated in state affairs and in predictions such as astrology and calculations. At that particular and critical time in history, Guru Rinpoche did not actually become king of the kingdom, because his father was of noble and prestigious royal lineage. At that very same time, King Hayalala's son, Prince Aksalila, had just ascended the throne, and Guru Rinpoche hoped that he, from here on, we will refer to him as Guru Rinpoche. Guru Rinpoche hoped that he would govern the country according to the Dharma. He advised the king to widely and consistently practice virtuous deeds. Perhaps in that situation, when he was king, Guru Rinpoche advised him to practice virtuous deeds. But later, Guru Rinpoche himself also encountered trouble. Then he himself was in the royal gardens. He built a Buddha hall and monks' quarters there. The area was completely surrounded by many stupas, and he also constructed many multiple layers of protective walls. At that time, Guru Rinpoche also built Buddha halls and stupas. Later he encountered trouble. Even now, in many places, people build stupas and Buddhist temples. Sometimes there are also some difficulties. At that time, Guru Rinpoche had 3 assistants. He had 3 assistants. One was the king's scribe, and the other two were ministers. But the three of them were not very good to Guru Rinpoche. They harbored ill intentions and secretly plotted. They wanted to find an effective way to take control of the country for themselves. One time the scribe slandered Guru Rinpoche to the king, saying, "This Padmavabhasi intends to usurp the throne." The king was most afraid of usurpation or being overthrown or rebellion, things like that. He and about 1,000 devoted monks gathered together in the sacred royal gardens were all brave and skilled in battle. They were originally peaceful monks and were now unexpectedly coming to rebel against the authority. Even now, many people are also afraid of monks getting involved in politics. Moreover, they turned the royal gardens into a scripture hall. In fact, the main purpose of constructing the walls all around it was to defend against you. He began to slander in this manner. It is still like this even nowadays. Maybe politically. There are too many people in this monastery. It might become a bit disadvantageous in the future. Throughout all the dynasties, if the leaders at the top were worried, generally speaking, wow, there are so many of them, they might have some negative influence in the future. There are all kinds of spies among them. It was the same back then. When people in ancient times talked about Guru Padmasambhava, they would often say other things as well. About your political involvement, participating in politics in dynasties, when many wanted to overthrow someone, they would say, this person by your side is bad for you. He has all kinds of motives. They would start sowing discord in this way. When the king consulted his ministers, since those two people just now were high officials, and because they spread these rumors, driven by jealousy and malice toward the capable, others echoed them. Everyone said Guru Rinpoche had an ulterior motive and could threaten your regime. So everyone just went along with it. As a result, the king sent his ministers to lead troops on an expedition. At that time, the laws in the land of Odhyana did not allow the king to kill Brahmins, Shramanas, or Panditas. Perhaps Guru Rinpoche was considered a Pandita at that time, or maybe he held some other status. Maybe he was considered a Shramana. Either way, you could say so. So the king ordered, Prime Minister, which refers to Guru Rinpoche, you and your monastic community must lay down your belongings and go to another place. So he didn't kill them, which was actually a good thing. Otherwise, at that time, they probably really tried all sorts of ways. Actually, in this context, the Guru Rinpoche we pray to each and every day now. Back then, it seemed like was an ordinary person. Even when in Tibetan area, when I was translating this part, I actually felt quite upset. Guru Rinpoche faced great difficulties. For ordinary people like us, it goes without saying. Those treacherous ministers. At that time, the religious situation in Tibetan area was complicated. We might not be able to finish talking about all of this year. Let's just take our time and go through it slowly. If we're still alive next year, we'll continue then. At that time, it was said that they didn't actually kill Guru Rinpoche. Instead, they expelled him from the country. As a result, all the monks left as well. Guru Rinpoche also left along with them. He had no choice but to leave. It was during that time that Guru Rinpoche left his own homeland. Then the ministers said, if we do not kill him, he will surely come back later and harm us. However, it seems that in the end, they could not bring themselves to actually do it. It was the same situation in Tibetan area. In Tibetan area, Guru Rinpoche and King Trisong Detsen discussed privately, you should return to India, otherwise there's nothing we can do. Then on Guru Rinpoche's way back, some treacherous ministers were again on the road, and 18 people were waiting there, planning to kill Guru Rinpoche. But in the end, Guru Rinpoche subdued all of them. They were all left paralyzed on the road. So at that time, Guru Rinpoche had great power in his secret mantras. Whether human or non-human, it was not easy to harm him in any way. They then started to sow discord among them, so they sent out a large number of skilled assassins to carry out the plot. They chained Guru Rinpoche with heavy and cold iron chains and shackles. However, Guru Rinpoche relied on his power, because earlier, didn't he practice many secret mantras? With this ability of his, he broke their chains and destroyed their iron shackles. The assassins' sharp blades eventually ended up destroying themselves in a miraculous turn of events. As a result, Guru Rinpoche was completely unharmed and remained perfectly safe. Instead, the weapons broke into several pieces. They tried to burn Guru Rinpoche in fire, but the fire could not harm him. They threw him into water, but it could not drown him. They tossed him off a cliff, but he was not injured. They even buried him alive underground. But Guru Rinpoche suddenly emerged from another cave. They were never able to catch him. The incredible power of Guru Rinpoche was truly just like that of the great Yogi Milarepa. At that particular time, it was certainly not easy to harm him at all. Just like in the Universal Gate chapter, when one recites the name of Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, water cannot drown, fire cannot burn, wind cannot blow, and so on. There are many such wonderful merits. So now, when we pray to Guru Rinpoche, who attained such great accomplishments in the past, relying on the power of his aspirations and the power of truth, as well as the incredible power of his mantras, so when we encounter any obstacles or difficulties, we will not be harmed by external forces. Therefore, I think that whether it is at Larungar or individuals, we often pray to Guru Padmasambhava. If you don't know how to recite or practice other things, just recite Guru Rinpoche's heart mantra more often. In this way, it offers personal protection and is also indeed very beneficial for one's own personal spiritual practice. That's all for today's teaching.
Kirgana jirano chupai chupun solen drasha Bandangara Badna Sadarda Bandangara Badna Sada Bandangara Badna Sadarda